stuck in traffic in Atlanta. So as the Sheriff of Jackson County, I want to welcome all of you to the 6th Annual Choices Program. I want to thank some special people, thank some people that are here that took time out. I want to thank all of you for coming, especially you that have children. This is a very important program, and we're coming off of the heels of the opioid forum, which was a tremendous success. And but I want to thank the officials that are here, the city officials, the county officials, Chief Workman, Jefferson Police, Mayor Quinn, Jefferson City, Judge Brooks, Judge Green, Judge Hicks, Judge Prim, Arcade Chief Williams, I saw him, Winder Probation, Dr. Talbot with Commerce City Schools, Ms. Guidine Benson with Jefferson School System, Ms. Maddox, I think I saw you there. Did I see you, Ms. Maddox from Maysville? Did I see her? Yep, way back there on the back. And I want to thank all of you. A special thanks to Jefferson City Schools, Coach Navis, Brandon Mosley for letting us come, and I thought I was going to have to stall, but you're here. So we're going to start out with a word of prayer by Lieutenant Knox, our works in our jail, and then we will go into our speakers from that point. But thank every one of you for being here.
Let us pray. Dear God, we come to you right now. Thank you for this day. God, we thank you for allowing us all to have life, health, and strength. And most of all, we thank you for being who you are, because we know besides you there is no other. God, we ask that you clear our minds from the youngest to the oldest to allow us to hear these testimonies from the individuals that have came to speak into our life and to give us warning and to learn about their choices that they made. God, we ask that you bless them tremendously for just taking a moment out. We also ask that you bless our sheriff for putting on this annual program. And we thank you for all that you have done and what you're going to do. And it's in your son Jesus' name I do pray. Amen.
And I would like to ask Mr. Brandon Mosley to come down, and he's going to introduce our first speaker.
Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Brandon Mosley. Those of you who don't know me, I grew up in this town a long time ago. Graduated 2010 or 2007. Graduated about 10, 11 years ago. Before we came here tonight, I told my wife, what was going on in this program that Sheriff Maitland was putting on, and how awesome this is for this community, and how I wish that we could have had something like this whenever I was in school. And she kidded around with me and told me she probably did, or they probably had something like this. You were just too big of a knucklehead to listen. And I told her, I started laughing a little bit. I said, you're right. Sheriff Maitland came in here last week to talk about opioids with our seniors. And I sat in the back of the room as she talked, Coach Navis talked, and listen to her tell them, how bad it is, what to do, what not to do, and hear these kids kind of, giggle, think it's not going to happen to them, think that they won't ever be in a place where they'll be presented with these drugs or this opportunity or this drinking, driving, just being in the wrong place at the wrong time, doing the wrong things. And I sat back, and I used to be one of those kids that did that very thing. And my prayer tonight is that each and every one of you in here won't think that you're invincible, that this won't happen to you, that you'll never be presented with a situation as you'll hear tonight from some of these speakers. But just listen with an open mind, open heart, that these people are here, they've been through it, they lived through it, they've learned the hard way, they've had to lose some people due to some of the mistakes that people have made. And learn from them. Don't learn from having to go through it yourself. Make the mistake of getting a charge against you, living with it for the rest of your life, end up in prison, or worse, passing away and going on, leaving your family and friends behind. Learn from these guys tonight. I'm introducing Mike Letzekerchen tonight. He, great family friend of mine. I grew up, well, I went to school, after high school, I went on to play football at one of the greatest colleges in the United States, Auburn University. Yeah, War Eagle. While I was there, I had the privilege to meet one of my best friends, Philip Lutzenkirchen. I can go on and talk about how great of a guy he was, the impact that he had on my life, but I'll let Mike do that tonight, and I just pray that one life in this room tonight will be impacted the way I was. A true godly person, take the shirt off his back, give it to anyone in this room. And I know that he's the same way because his son was. And so please give your undivided attention to my dear friend, Mike Lutzenkirchen.
He had unbelievable talent. He had a great personality. He had the work ethic. He had the character. He had everything we were looking for.
He was a leader and led from a vocal standpoint or just doing what he was supposed to do. Him being fired up got all of us fired up, and we kind of followed suit.
Cam takes the snap, looking for the receiver. He's got Lutzenkirchen. Touchdown Auburn! Touchdown Auburn! Lutzenkirchen, he threw it back across the field. 7-yard play. Touchdown Tigers! We're tied at 27.
A goofy little dance after the touchdown, but then as soon as he did that, he gathered himself and turned around. Where are my teammates? I want to celebrate with my teammates. And so that one play in and of itself kind of embodied who Philip was, both as a person and a football player.
He kind of had it all. He was a great guy. You know, his teammates loved him. He worked hard. He was an outstanding football player and athlete.
Mosley off the play action, throws in the flat. Lutzenkirchen 10, Lutzenkirchen 5, crawling to the goal line. He's in! Touchdown Auburn!
And he just was a huge goofball. If he wasn't having fun doing what he was doing, he wasn't going to enjoy it and he wasn't going to pursue it. So he loved football and he had a lot of fun doing it, and he always had a smile on his face, and he was always trying to cheer his teammates up and get the crowd going by smiling and laughing, and he never took himself too seriously, and I think that's what people really appreciated about him.
He left a mark of love. Like, he showed everybody love. He showed the custodians in the football field love. He showed his teachers love. He showed his teammates love. He showed his classmates love. He showed his opponents love. Like, he just left love. And I think that's why losing him has been, it's obviously very hard, but his legacy of love and his impact was amazing.
In motion from left to right. Cameron's going to roll out. Here comes pressure from behind. He'll throw it back across to Lutzenkirchen. Makes the catch at the 10 to the 5. He's in! Touchdown Tigers!
You look back and reflect on his legacy, and you see the impact he's made on this community, and you still, at least for me, I start to think, well, why is that? What is it about Philip? And I think that it just comes down to one single thing, and it's selflessness. It was never about him. It was about everyone else.
Him having that big of an influence and having this platform being on the football team, he used it to the best of his ability, and he really helped out a lot of kids through either cancer patients or Down syndrome or just anyone down on their left. He was able to always say hi and help them out.
He would meet somebody for the first time and you left being like, man, Philip's one of my really good friends. He made people feel like that. And I think that's why losing him impacted so many people, because it's so easy to just make yourself available for people, and he did that. And I think that's why his impact is so big.
That type of personality just, it's infectious, and it radiated throughout this community. And the fact that he was also a successful football player just gave him that much higher of a pedestal in which to display those qualities and leave a mark here that I think will last forever.
I'd much rather be known for what I've done off the field and impacting other people's lives and how many touchdowns or how many catches I've had.
Good evening. So it's going to be a quiet crowd tonight? So somebody must have started a rumor up here that I have bad breath and nobody would come sit up front. No matter where you go, if it's middle school kids or high school kids, college or adults, and the adults are probably the worst, everybody sits near the back. So I had to abide by my own set of rules, which I try to be the best non-distracted or impaired driver that I can be. And if you know where I live in Marietta, Georgia, I literally left at 4:15 and I pulled into this parking lot at 6:30. So welcome to living in Atlanta. So you have a lot of benefits to living up here in Jefferson County. And I've got a new friend, and I don't know that, I haven't spent much time with her, but Janice, if I can call you Janice. Janice met me at an event back in January in Cobb County, where I was asked to come speak and share what we're doing with our foundation, the Let's See 43 Foundation, and a new initiative that we announced back in October called 43 Key Seconds. And if you picked up on it, everything we do in our foundation is based on Philip's number at Auburn University, 43. And Janice reached out to me and says, Mike, I do this event, it's in our 6th year up in Jefferson. It brings all 4 high schools in it. I hope the ADs and the superintendents and the principals will take advantage of it. And I would tell you I'm disappointed that more kids didn't take advantage of this night, because you do not have a lot of county sheriffs that lead your police at a sheriff at a county level that are doing things that she's doing for your community. So I think we owe her a round of applause. My family, I'm from Chicago, so I don't say fixin', and I don't say y'all. I know there's a lot of smart people, smarter than me, that say that, so it's a compliment. I am over here in an area where, when you see orange and blue, I might get booed. I do have a daughter in my life, it's a hellion. Her daughter's name is Amy. Amy's a UGA grad, so I do go for the Bulldogs. I know I did Go Dogs. And one of the daughters, you didn't see Amy in this video, ironically, I have 3 beautiful daughters. You saw daughter Ann had tears in her eyes from a video that was created back in September of last year when the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration reached out to us. So that's the federal government agency that's responsible for doing whatever they can to ensure that we have safe roads in this country, and they're doing incredible work, because we're actually seeing a trend downward of fatalities based on distracted driving that are happening, and I think a lot of it's because of NHTSA and the Governor's Office of Highway Safety and sheriffs like Janice and other police that are trying to protect us. And as I drove up here, it's like we don't even have a hands-free law in this state anymore. It was just enacted July 1st of last year. If you follow what we're doing here in this state, we were only a 16th state that said, you know what, we believe in this so much, we're going to make it a statewide law, and you're going to be a hands-free driver. Only 16 states. And yet, I think it's hard to police, quite frankly. And on my way up here, cutting across 92 just to get to I-85, I lost count of how many people I saw my age like this and like this. And that's what our foundation's all about now. I'm going to tell a story about my son Philip. I'm going to give you a few things. And the reality of it is, I know I'm not the only parent sitting here that's probably lost a child way too early. There's too many of us that have. And like Brandon said, Brandon and Philip were teammates on the 2010 National Championship team. And I'll tell you what, when Brandon ended up transferring to Auburn, he said, Dad, I hope this kid is a good kid. I hope he can play tackle, because if he can play tight end, he's so damn big. I may not be playing tight end. But he stepped in an open spot and played every game that year after, I think, the third game. And he and Philip, I've got this wonderful picture at home, quite frankly, brought tears to my eyes today, of seeing these two guys run out on the field when we kicked the game-winning field goal, because they weren't on that field goal unit, and they played the entire game at tackle and tight end. I have the most wonderful picture of him running on the field with Philip like they were 5-year-olds, celebrating the national championship. And it's so cool to start this out with a prayer, because I don't get to, when I go to public schools, I don't get to talk about my faith, quite frankly. And I'm proud to tell you, I'm Catholic and I'm Christian. Anybody else Catholic here? You get one other hand, two other hands. We're a minority here. So, I would love to tell you one of my favorite scripture passages, but I'm going to tell you to just go read it when you get a chance. It's Matthew 13, 1 through 8. And if you follow the Bible, by the way, when people tell me not to talk about my faith, I laugh, because that's the #1 book in the world. But I can't talk about it in public a lot. But that parable means a lot to me, because I describe myself as, I am from Chicago, where there are a lot of Catholics. And I am God-rich and Bible-poor. God didn't make me smart enough to memorize a lot of scripture, so that's not why I'm on earth. But that particular parable I think is important to us. And the two things, if you go read it, I would say focus on seed and soil, because it's about a sower, it's about a farmer that's going to spread seed. And it's basically somebody saying, hey, why don't you go spread God's word? Let's go spread the Bible. I changed it a little bit. My wife forbids me to give my own version. She's not here, so I'll deny it if it gets back to her. I think the seed's important because we're all seed. We get to choose each and every day where we go, what we do. We get to choose if we're going to text and drive, or for you kids, if you're going to Facebook Live and drive. We get to choose how we act when people come near us. So I think that's the soil in us. So I really think seed and soil in that passage are important. But I want to talk to you about some numbers. I want to talk to you about direct decisions and indirect decisions, because I think that's important. So I want to tell you a story real quick here. And I know I'm not alone in this journey, but my wife and I were blessed on Sunday or Saturday, June 28th of 2014. And I know for you young kids, that was a long time ago. For me, quite frankly, on a day like today where we finally don't have rain, and it's not real hot, but at least it's sunny, it kind of reminded me of that morning. It was a Sunday morning, and our two older girls that live separately in different places in downtown Atlanta were home with us. And our youngest daughter, Abby, wasn't with us that weekend, and Philip wasn't with us. And it was a rare weekend. We really didn't know where Philip was. But Philip had called me that Friday, June 27th, and he called me. His dream of playing the NFL like Brandon. Brandon made it for a few years. Philip didn't. He had a couple significant injuries his senior year at Auburn. But he ended up being a free agent, played one preseason with the St. Louis Rams. He got cut. He was working in Montgomery, Alabama. And that Friday at about 5:15 Eastern time, I'll never forget, it was about 95 degrees out. My wife and I were driving around in our van. And Phil called me with excitement in his voice. And he didn't show a lot of excitement all the time verbally. On a football field, I think he played the game the right way, so he celebrated with his teammates. He didn't taunt other teammates. By the way, he's the record holder for tight ends by a tight end at Auburn, and 3 of those came against UGA. So how about that? So that's my trivia on UGA tonight. But he called me to say, Dad, you'll never believe what happened. I was all excited because I thought he was going to say, Dad, I'm getting healthy again. My shoulder injury's gone, my hip injury's gone, I'm going to make another run at the NFL. And he said, Dad, I'm done with the NFL, don't worry about that. He was working in Montgomery, Alabama. And he called me to say, you know what, Dad? I just got off the phone with Reverend Chet Williams, who runs the FCA program at Auburn University. And Chet had reached out to Philip, who was 23 years old. And I think this is going to tell you a little bit the type of soil Philip was. Chet called and said, Philip, we've got our 50th anniversary event for FCA coming to Auburn on July 24th. If you ever go to it, they put round tables with 10 people per table on the floor in the basketball arena there. So you have 1,000 to 1,200 people. And they were going to ask my son to be the master of ceremony, to lead that event at 23. I think that tells you a lot about who he was and how they thought of Philip. Unfortunately, Philip and his friends went to some farm that weekend in LaGrange, Georgia. They were all of age. They were all 21 and older. There were 13 kids. Now, let me jump back a little bit before I come back to that story and give you some numbers. 2 ankles, 3 ACLs, 2 hips, 2 shoulders, 7 concussions. Those are the injuries that happened to my kids that played Division I sports. 2 of the girls were Division I soccer players, and my real hellion's not Amy, who went to Georgia. She didn't play soccer at Georgia, but my youngest daughter, Abby, decided to go to Alabama and play soccer where her brother was at Auburn already. So that's the true definition of a hellion. Alabama and Auburn. So I say Roll Tide soccer. But those are the injuries. My kids had no intention. There was no intention for them to get injured. But what's really cool about it, we're in the Lenten season right now. And Lent's all about falling down and getting back up. It's not how we're judged when we fall down. We're all going to fall down. We're all sinners. But it's what we do to get up. And my kids didn't have those, they didn't play sports. And I love to talk to teams all the time because I can sit and say, you know what? You signed up for adversity when you became an athlete. As soon as you signed up, put that jersey on, you signed up for adversity. You're going to fall behind in a game. You're going to miss a block in a game. You may miss a spike at a crucial point in a volleyball game. Something's going to happen. You're going to lose a game. You're going to get destroyed in a certain game. But it's how you react. And my kids, I'm really proud of because they reacted strongly to their injuries. They wanted to follow whatever medical procedures were given to them and rehab to get back on the field or on the court or on the field or soccer field as quick as they can. Those were intentional. My son that weekend, I really don't know if his intentions were to drink too much. But see, because Philip had created a platform for himself playing football in this crazy Southeast and at Auburn University having success. And by the way, he was one of the rare two-time captains at Auburn. He was a captain his junior and his senior year. They started to drink like crazy that weekend. And my family didn't get the courtesy of a phone call. As I said, my two oldest daughters were home with my wife, Mary, and I. We had gone to an event Saturday night, and we woke up Sunday morning and went to Catholic Mass and Transfiguration where we're parishioners. And my youngest daughter, see, she was on a bus coming back from Jacksonville, Florida. She had had one of these ankle surgeries. I just referenced the injuries, and she was rehabbing. The NCAA gave her a one-time chance to go play in a semi-pro game as part of a rehab. And we came back from Mass on a beautiful Sunday morning, and there was a yellow sticky on our front door. And I knew that wasn't good. And all that yellow sticky had on it was a number and said, please call, a 706 area code. And I knew that wasn't good. And I said to the girls, where was Philip? Our girls always had a great knowing where Philip was, just like he did they. And he said, no, we don't know. We don't know what he's doing this weekend. We thought he was going to go to Auburn because he was living in Montgomery. So I called that number, and I didn't get an answer, and I dialed it again. And by this time, we had made it outside to our deck, which is the second level deck. It's beautiful, sunny out. My wife and two oldest daughters were looking at me. I don't even remember that Abby was on a bus at this point. I called that number again, and this time I got a live voice. And that live voice, all he said to me was, I need you to call another number. And I pressed him to say, what's going on here? I knew this was not good. What's going on here? Sir, I don't have any details. Please call this number. If you're like me, I don't even know my wife's phone number anymore because it's in her phone. We're so addicted to these smart technologies, these phones. So I do remember saying 706, and Mary remembered that. And then I said the next 7 digits, repeated that he told me, and the girls remembered it. And then I got off the phone right away, and I knew it was 706, and said, Ann, what's the next 3? Amy, what's the next 4? And they're just staring at me. And this time, I got a live voice on the first call. And as I look back at this, I don't remember his name. Probably should look it up because I talk so much to share this story. He said, I'm the coroner of Troup County. There was an accident last night, and Philip is dead. That's how I learned my son's passing, from a yellow sticky. Because he intentionally went to this farm to have fun, and at some point they intentionally drank, and they kept going. And we didn't get a courtesy of a phone call. 8 weeks after Philip passed away, and I knew there had to be alcohol involved as soon as that coroner told me there was an accident last night, because we've created a society, and that's what kids that age do. And Philip was always pretty respectful when it came to alcohol. And again, I realized I'm his dad, I'm his best friend, so he didn't party with me like he partied with some of his friends. But 8 weeks after he passed away, I got a Google alert one day on Philip, and USA Today magazine came out, and then that edition of SportsCenter that night on ESPN didn't start out with a baseball score, my favorite team, the Chicago Cubs, or a soccer game. It started out with Auburn's Lutzenkirchen's BAC. And I know most of us probably know what that is, blood alcohol content level. And in this state and every other state in the country, 0.08, you're considered legally intoxicated. And for you young girls in this audience, if you think you want to drink, let me just tell you, you might drink 1 Michelob Ultra beer and you can't pass a breathalyzer because your body's not equipped mentally to handle that. That's why we have laws of 21 for drinking ages. The medical experts will tell you we probably should move it to 25 if you really want to base it on the brain being able to handle alcohol. PAC wasn't .08. USA Today said it across the top. It wasn't .16, 2 times legally intoxicated. It was .377. Yeah, ooh, that's right. I've heard so many people say, couldn't have been right. How could he have gotten himself in the back seat of a 2006 Chevy Tahoe? And you know, quite frankly, it doesn't matter to me whether it was right or wrong. I had people come to me and say, Mike, there's probably a legal case here because we think Troup County may have screwed up the stick test. Doesn't bring my son back. And I'm truly, people ask me why I do this. This is God's will for me. It's for me to use my son so hopefully no other fathers and no other mothers are in the shoes that I wear, my wife wears, or my daughters. Because see, my youngest daughter was on that bus. And after watching my wife drop to her knees, and my oldest daughter scream at the top of her lungs, and my middle daughter, Ann, just looking at me like a ghost, as white as can be, I realized that Abby was on a bus coming back from Jacksonville with very few players that she knew because it was a chance to rehab. These were other kids playing soccer. They weren't her Alabama teammates. They weren't her national 1700 teammates. They were other girls that she didn't really know. I had to call her. And when I tell this, it reminds me so closely about, I woke up Abby. And I said, Ab, what are you doing? She's almost mad at me. I don't know what my voice sounded like, but hers was like mad. Like, Dad, you know I'm probably on a bus. You just woke me up. What's going on? I had to say to her, one other girl on that team I knew, her name was Tess. Tess lived up in this area, by the way. And I said, Abby, where's Tess? Think about what's going through her mind. Why am I asking about a teammate? I was lucky. Tess happened to be across the aisle in another seat. And Abby gave her the phone. I can't imagine what was going through Abby's mind. What is my dad calling here about? See, what was really motivating me? These damn smartphones and technology. I knew my daughter was going to find out about her brother's death through social media. So I said, Tess, it's Mr. Lutz. She's probably thinking I'm some big ogre. I said, where's your coach? I don't even know my name. At the front of the bus. What's going on? I said, Tess, take your phone to the coach, right? I didn't tell that coach, Coach, you don't know who I am, but I'm Abby's daughter. I don't know if he's got another Abby on the team. And I broke down. And I said, her brother's dead. I need you to watch out for my baby girl. For the next 5 hours, my daughter rode on a bus by herself with her teammates, all because of Philip's decisions that weekend. He wasn't thinking about the impact it would have on others. And that's the problem we have, especially our teens, when we start talking about underage drinking. Or Janice and I talked about this, because everywhere I go to talk now, everybody in law enforcement wants me to address the issue of vaping, of a thing called juuling. If you haven't heard of juuling, go look it up. It's J-U-U-L. It's a company. And they're going to tell you that they're making this product so adult smokers and cigarettes will wean off because juuling is supposedly better for you than smoking a Marlboro. So that's a craze now. And when I ask kids unscientifically, why do you juul? Man, can't get caught. It's not what you're reading about that talks about, well, it's the flavors. There's a pineapple flavor, or there's an apple berry flavor, and that's why they do it. I get kids that tell me, I juul because I can't get caught, because it's the size of a thumb drive. I can sit in a class, it doesn't create a puff of smoke. My teachers don't even know. I spoke to a baseball team recently, Woodstock High School. All guys environment. I know we're not all guys here, so I gotta watch myself. But the coach said, Mike, you got a lot of leeway because it's just all guys. I asked by show of hands, how many of you guys juul? They looked at me like, are you crazy, man? You think I'm gonna answer that? Coach is there. I turned around and said, Coach, this is a penalty-free environment, right? I'm a guest. He said, it is. I said, who's got the courage to tell me they juul? 2 guys raised their hand. My follow-up question was, did you smoke cigarettes beforehand? No, sir. Now, they may be lying to me on this question. Did you smoke marijuana? No, sir. So why the hell do you juul? Excuse my French. And they looked at me and said, because I can't get caught. That's what's going on right now in our high schools and our middle schools. So parents, I'm asking you to help me. I'm going to give you some challenges. The challenge is to sit down with your kids and talk about, you've got this phone. I'm going to bet by show of hands, who doesn't have a smartphone? We got one. He's proud of it. He's got a flip phone. Got a flip phone? Good for you. You don't even know what juuling is, do you?
Yeah.
You do? Do you juul?
No.
Okay, good. So we're all wired. We're constantly wired. You know what's pretty cool about when you become unplugged? You can do two things. One is, if you do believe in God, you can have a wonderful conversation when you're unplugged. The other one is you're safer. But that's what kids are telling me why they jewel. So my challenge here is to talk a little bit about who Philip was, character-wise. Because I love a quote that one of Brandon's teammates at Auburn, that's now the long snapper for the Atlanta Falcons, another roommate of Philip for a year and a half at Auburn, Josh Harrison, who was down the road in Brazelton, he went and spoke at an event. And he said something so good that I thought, hey, I'm going to footnote this, and can I steal it from you? Josh said, absolutely. See, Josh lived with Philip. He knew who Philip was as a character, as a believer, as somebody that did things for other people. But here's what he said. He says, I don't care if you had the courage not to sit in the front row tonight, or you sat in the back, or you're in law enforcement or you're not. You're white, you're black, you're something other. You're male, you're female. If you're a high school student here, you're a jock or you're not. You're a 4.0 student or you're barely making a 2.0. You root for the Dogs or you root for Auburn. There's no discrimination when you have a series of poor decisions. See, that weekend, my son did not intentionally go there to get drunk. And it happened. He didn't intentionally get in that 2006 Chevy Tahoe at 2:30 in the morning. Because you know why? The driver had to go get a can of dip. And in this remote area of LaGrange, he knew where he could get that dip. And I know that's true because the police made me watch a surveillance camera of Philip's friend walking in, and he got his can of dip. And he was 2 times legally intoxicated. Then they got back. He got back in that Chevy Tahoe, and there were 4 kids in there. Philip, 2 friends in the front, a girl in the back. That was friends to all the guys. And then they drove on this winding road, this remote area of LaGrange back. And they were, somehow the black box recording that they were going 77 miles an hour and 55. And then that driver came to a stop sign. And there's a little church back behind it. And there's a little shallow ravine. You either came to that stop sign, you went right or you went left, or in this case, you missed it. What I've been told, in page 8 of an accident report has a diagram showing the back end of this SUV flipping back end over the front, and then it rolled over the passenger side, and then the top of the vehicle, and then the other side, and then the bottom of the vehicle. And it's pretty amazing when you look at kids' eyes and you're in a high school gymnasium, which is an 84-foot basketball court, or you're speaking at Auburn, they play on a 94-foot court, and say, no guys, that car didn't go 1 length, or 2 lengths, 3 lengths, or 4. It went close to 5 because it went 450 feet in the air. And on page 8, there's a diagram of the vehicle upside down. And I've seen the picture. I don't know how anybody survived it. My son, forever in my mind, is a stick figure now. And he's laying 15 feet from the vehicle, with his name above the circular head. And no matter where I talk, kids all know what a stick figure is. And at the bottom it says, DOA for dead on arrival. And the driver's a stick figure. He's bent over through the busted out driver's door. And the coroner did something I don't think he usually does. He called me 48 hours after our initial conversation. He said, Mike, I knew who you were. I knew who Philip was. I grew up, grade school, with Jay Jacobs, the athletic director at Auburn. I know you're Catholic, I'm Catholic. I know you've got a daughter that goes to Alabama. I've got one of those too. But he said, Mike, I think the sheer size of Philip and the physique that he had and the health he was in, and he had gone from 255 down to 235 as a football player because he wasn't playing anymore. They believe the young girl followed him out her side, and that probably saved her life. But she was read her last rites because she wasn't wearing a seatbelt. See, here's what's amazing. I have all kinds of statistics I know now. Like, for example, when we go to bed tonight in this country, 9 teens will die today, have died from just distracted driving. The number 1 cause of death for 16 to 23-year-olds, that's our high school and our college kids. So just go to the 4 high schools in this county or go down to Athens. The number 1 cause is a combination of distracted and impaired driving. 9 kids. And yet we're only the 16th state that has enacted a hands-free law. So I do this math and it's not accurate. So don't judge me on my math capability. When you go talk to a high school and say, hey, think about this. There's 500 kids in an auditorium. Statistically, we would have 45 of you still waking up the next day if there wasn't a thing called distracted driving. 9 out of 10. 9 times 500 is 45. I know the math doesn't really work out that way, but it's pretty powerful, and yet we're only the 16th state. I get states all the time ask me, Mike, will you help us, the state of Alabama? We want to go hands-free. I've never been in law enforcement. I've never been in a government. I don't claim to be Republican or Democrat. I want to help them all I can because I think it'll change the narrative. Unavoidable accidents and fatalities due to distracted and impaired driving. My daughter's lives are forever changed because of Phil's decisions that weekend. I tell kids all the time, whatever his intentions were that weekend, do you believe in a second that my sons had an unintentional outcome that he wanted to die? No. But it was these poor decisions. And he had the world at his fingertips. He had some money, even though it was a brief period playing in the NFL. He had a high-paying job. He played football in this crazy South when they put him on a pedestal. And it didn't spare him. So we looked at this and said, what can we do? What can we do more? I've been blessed to have about 185,000 people hear me talk across this country in a talk that's usually titled Philip's Legacy, What Legacy Are You Leaving? And I'd love to come back, Janice, and get all 4 high schools together to do that. Because I don't want you parents to deal with what I'm dealing with. I'm going to drive home tonight. I know it's going to happen. On a good note, it'll be 8:43. For some reason, God has me look at the clock when there's a 43 on it. I'll hear a Need to Breathe song. That'll bring tears to my eyes. I might even see a beautiful orange sunset tonight. See, that's how God works, right? He doesn't make red sunsets. He makes them orange. That was meant to be a joke. Didn't go. But back in March, somebody challenged me and said, Mike, do you think you're doing enough? And I don't. So we started to take a look at things. And I'm going to ask a couple questions to see if I can get some interaction tonight. And it's word association. There's no wrong answer. But when I say the color pink, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Breast cancer, that's right. If I say the phrase live strong, what comes to mind? Lance Armstrong, that's also cancer awareness. If I were to show you the image of the Wounded Warrior Project, I think most of us would know that we're going to take care of the military that have gone out to protect the greatest country in the world and have come back injured. And we're going to help take care of them. So who can give me an answer? First thing that comes to mind, what's the national symbol for distracted or impaired driving? Death. There's the right answer. There is no one. Here we are. The National Highway Transportation Safety Administration in the state of Georgia, the Governor's Office of Highway Safety, they use the terms crisis and epidemic for distracted and impaired driving. Yet we, as smart as we are in this country, don't have a nationally recognized symbol. So somebody challenged me and I said, I wonder what we can do with that. You think about that, crisis and epidemic, those are pretty strong words. Just like hate. Not much worse than hate. And I said, something that's a crisis and epidemic, maybe there's false information. There's not false information. We just simply, as a country, haven't gotten our act together and said, we just say drive sober, get pulled over, click it or ticket. Those are all neat sayings. But we started to think about something. And I'm proud that we do another event over in Alabama called Your Keys to Drive. It's a teen driving summit. And I'd love help trying to bring that here to Jackson County because I think it's very impactful. But what you're going to get tonight, if you're a teenage driver, we have a thing we call 43 key seconds. So we think we've created something that if we do this right, it'll populate here in the great state of Georgia and Alabama, where I spent a lot of time, ultimately in the southeast and become a national symbol. So what we've done is we've created a key and a countdown. And it's a physical key, it's a decorative key. The goal is for you to take this countdown card that has a 43-second countdown. It starts with, before you start your car, take 43 seconds. And somebody said, man, that's a long time, Mike. To do something for 43 seconds before I start a car, we're always in a hurry, we're always late. And I said, you know what, maybe that is. Then I did research. And the government's done a test that says if you program your GPS in your car, if you have an in-dash GPS, it takes 42 seconds to set the address to where you're going to go. Not quite 43, but it's pretty close. If you do it in your smartphone because you're more accustomed to that interface, it'll only take you 32 seconds. So we want you to take 43 seconds before you start your car, whether the youngest driver in here or the oldest, and we think it'll change the narrative on fatalities and accidents. And what it is to have a clear head. To make sure you're not alcohol impaired, drug impaired, especially you teens, you're not fatigued. You're not emotionally distressed. And if you get past that, go to the next step, is make sure you got clear hands. In driver's ed, when I had it back in high school, it was 10 and 2. I don't know if they still prescribe to that, but 2 hands on the wheel. That means, kids, you've already texted, you've already emailed, and your phone is on that dashboard, which should be easy in our state because we're hands-free. It means we've already put our seatbelt on. We've made sure our passengers have put their seatbelts on. Those hands are ready to drive. The third step is make sure you got a clear set of eyes, especially our teenage drivers. You're focused ahead. We're doing an initiative in Jefferson County, Alabama, which is where Birmingham resides. The first time when I went with the new sheriff, Mark Petway, he said, "Mike, did you hear about an accident last night?" I said, "Sheriff, I did." He said it happened in Fultondale. 4 teenage girls, a 16-year-old driver, 2 15-year-olds, and a 14-year-old. Mike, it wasn't that bad outside. It was a little wet. We got a call. And what we learned is the driver and the front seat passenger had their seatbelts on. The 2 girls in the back didn't. And the driver had turned around, and she went off the right side of the shoulder a little bit, and she overcorrected, which happens a lot. And she went through 2 lanes of traffic at 80 miles an hour. And her car hit a tree. And the car split completely in half. And the 14-year-old was dead on arrival. And one of the 15-year-olds is still in critical condition. As we sat there, I said, "What other information do you have?" She goes, "Mike, this just happened at 8:30 last night, and we were meeting at 9 o'clock the next morning. We don't have any other details." I said, "Sheriff, that could potentially, as god-awful as this is, just be inexperienced drivers. A 16-year-old who didn't want to go by the graduated driver law, who wasn't supposed to have other teens in her car." Unfortunately, a week later, when I went back and had another meeting with Sheriff Petway, and I checked in, "How's the second girl doing?" She said, "Mike, her condition hasn't changed that much." So the message here, especially for all of us, the 2 kids that wore seatbelts walked away almost injury-free. If you don't believe seatbelts save lives, then you haven't read the reports. And I will tell you this, I wouldn't be in Jefferson, Georgia tonight if my son had a seatbelt on. He'd be alive. I'm not sure what condition, but statistically my son would be alive. So I encourage you to wear seatbelts in the back seat. Unfortunately, what the sheriff shared with me, Mike, these teenage girls, there was alcohol involved. So that third step is to make sure clear hands, clear head, clear hands, clear eyes, you're focused on the road. We believe if you do that, the final ones should be simple because it's a state law everywhere we live. Anywhere we live in this country. In the front seat, it's clicking. And here's what your wonderful sheriff has done. She says, "Mike, how do I outfit my community with these? How do I get this in their hands?" I said, "Janice, we can give you our standard ones. On one side of the key it says 43 key seconds. On the opposite side of the key it says 43 the word TO or 43 to distracted free. And on our lanyard it says 43 key seconds and then it alternates with 43 to distracted free." But I said, "You know what? I bet your community wants something close to their heart." So she said, "What's your idea?" She's put Jackson County on this key, Jackson County Sheriff. She's put on the lanyard. The goal is for you to learn this, take this the card off the lanyard, and take this lanyard with the key and put it around your rearview mirror. As a constant, visible reminder that when you're tempted to snatch that phone while you're driving on 85 or on 129 or on a back road, which you think are safe, that you're going to put that phone down and say, "I'm not going to be distracted, I'm not going to be an impaired driver." I'm a big believer. I played college basketball, and the coach said, if you try something for 21 days, it becomes a habit. I didn't believe him. He said, "Try it." "Well, what do you think I should do, Coach?" He goes, "You're smart, I think. Figure something out." I'm not that smart. I brushed my teeth for 21 days in a row in the shower. I still do it today. Now that's a joke itself. You know, the male intellect is an oxymoron. Some of us know what that means. My wife would tell me I'm gross. Stop brushing your teeth in the shower. I said, Mary, you're not using my toothbrush. Why does it bother you? So I encourage you to try. If you've got a bad habit, we all have bad habits, and your bad habit is, I text and drive, I'm a kid, I Facebook and drive. I'd love to ask these questions. By show of hands, who knows what distracted driving is? Every hand should go up. Follow-up question is, who drove here tonight or drove sometime within the last 48 hours was a distracted driver? I didn't say, hey, I'm free. Law enforcement's not going to get you. Come get you. I said distracted. 80% of us are distracted when we drive. This is just for our teenage kids or our younger kids. I really want honesty from your kids. Raise your hand if your mom or dad is a distracted driver when you're in the car. Kids love throwing their parents under the bus. So that's a challenge. Mom and dad, kids, have a conversation. You don't want to have some other fat man have to come and talk to your community because they lost a son, because of something that was completely 100% avoidable. I get to go around this great state. You know, we are the second in the state of Georgia. We have more counties than every other state in this country than Texas. And this is the first sheriff who says, Mike, I'm signing up for this program. We've run some billboards here along I-85 over the last 7 days, about 43 key seconds. And I'm committed to do more with your sheriff because she's committed to do something for your community. So I want to thank you, Janice, for reaching out to me. As I told her. I'd love to come back and go to these high schools because I'm not sure, this is going to sound really bad, who I am. Do we have any superintendents here from the 3 school districts? We got one. Awesome. What school district?
Commerce.
Commerce. I don't like Commerce. It has an outlet mall. We have a lake house in South Carolina, and my wife thinks that going to lake house means stopping in Commerce. I'd like her to stop at Starbucks. One superintendent. I'm not trying to be critical of superintendents. How many principals? Okay. What school, sir? Awesome. How many athletic directors? So let me close with this. And why I love to talk to student athletes. By show of hands, who's a current student athlete or has been a student athlete? Flip phone, you weren't a student athlete back in the 20s? No? What I love, I can come here and talk, or go to Commerce High School, or come talk here at Jefferson. I will never be able to wear the same jersey that Brandon wore. I can go buy a hat with your Jefferson logo. I can probably buy a quarter zip top. But what I love about athletes, as soon as they put that jersey on, athletes are so important in the school because people get to see you. When an athlete screws up, it makes the paper. When somebody in the band, which is an important group, don't get me wrong, screws up, it doesn't make the paper. When somebody in a science club or a Spanish club, it doesn't make the paper. I think athletes influence the world. And I'm narrow-minded. But here's the deal. You signed up for adversity when you became an athlete. So I close with this. When Brandon in 2010 at right tackle lined up where Phillip was attached at right end, and Phillip missed the block, what do you think Brandon said the first play? Probably some things we can't repeat in this room. But hey man, get the game. Patted him on the tail. He needs you. If Phillip did it again, now it got a little more vocal. We, as competitors, as athletes, we challenge each other in volleyball if we miss a spike, or in football if we miss a block, or in baseball if the pitcher keeps walking, the shortstop's going to walk in and say, man, start throwing strikes. But when we get in the game of life, we back down because of peer pressure. Hey man, I know we shouldn't be doing it, I'm not going to jewel, but I'm not going to stop you to do it. Hey, I hear this all the time. I grew up in Chicago, I live in Atlanta. You don't know what it's like to live in a rural community, there's nothing to do. So we have parents that support the kids because they know they're going to drink, so they do it at the parents' house. What a cop-out. So I love to talk to athletes. So, in closing, what I'd love for you to do is take out your cell phone. go to our website, let'se43.org. We have a safe driving pledge there. I'd love you to go to that safe driving pledge between now and midnight tonight and click that on. It's simple. It might be a dialogue between you and your teenage kids. It's just kind of a commitment from you as a parent to your kids back to your parents. But my real challenge is for you high school kids here. We do a program called the Let's E43 Foundation Ambassador Program. We're looking for high school kids that want to go back to their school, maybe come to us and say, what does that ambassador entail? It means you got to sign the driving pledge. It means you're going to hang the key and lanyard from your car to make it visible. You're going to memorize the countdown. And you're going to tell people proudly, you know what, I'm not going to drink and drive. I'm not going to smoke and drive. I'm not going to not wear my seatbelt. I'm going to tell my passengers to wear their seatbelt. I'm not going to be distracted. We think if we all do this together, and here's what's cool, I'm from Chicago. When you're raised in Chicago, God, I shouldn't say this, but I'm going. The Deep South has got a questionable education. I live here. I am Deep South. We're as smart as anybody in this country, and I think Georgia and Alabama can help us make the difference in this country. Because I truly believe this. 2 years from now, I'm going to have some teenage boy or girl that just got their license in Portland, Maine, wake up one day, and I'm going to have some adult in Portland, Oregon, complete opposite ends of the country. They don't know anything about Georgia-Auburn football and the oldest rivalry in college football in the South. They're going to know that number 43, not Philip, they won't know who he is, they won't know who our foundation is. They're going to know the 43, though, is just like pink represents breast cancer awareness. 43 is going to represent, I'm going to be a non-distracted, non-impaired driver. So I want to thank you for letting me be late and let me share our story about my son. I'm going to hang around for a while. Anybody wants to ask me about Philip, I'd love to tell you about Philip, but I also suggest you tell this lady thank you in person tonight. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mike.
Every time you get in the car, a lot of things want our attention. A lot of things feel like they just can't wait. And a lot of things might feel in the moment like they're not a big deal. Choosing to drive without distraction can be a hard choice, but it is the choice that could save your life. You've probably heard the stats and scary numbers. And they're all true. But what it comes down to is the choice you make in the moment.
Can you get that for me?
Sure. When you get into your car, remember to take 43 key seconds to complete the safe driving checklist. Ensure you have a clear head, one that is not affected by alcohol, drugs, or emotions. Have clear hands. Send a text, adjust the radio, and put your devices away so you can be hands-free. Clear eyes. Set your sights on the road ahead. Don't look at your passengers or down at your phone to a text. Finally, click your seatbelt. It's the law and could save your life. Now, turn your key and make the choice to drive safely.
Okay, I want to thank Mr. Mike for taking time at the last minute. I didn't call him till just a few weeks ago to see if he could make it, and I want to thank him. It takes a lot of courage to get up here and have to speak about losing a child I can't imagine. And I want to thank him for every driving age student in here. Raise your hand if you're 15, 16, driving age. Raise your hand. We'll have one of these lanyards at the back door for you when you leave. So get one. And remember what he said. And Mr. Mike, thank you again. God bless you for sharing the story of your tragedy and turning it into something that will help others. We thank you for that. Now we're going to hear from a young lady that I'll let her tell you her story, but we're so glad to have her. Jessica's going to come and share with us, and we're going to get on with this. She'll be fine.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Can y'all hear me? Yes. recovery, and what that means to me is I have been free from drugs for 3 years and 1 month today. I'm here tonight to share a story about how my choices took me to rock bottom and brought me back to restoration. If you're here tonight and you're currently in recovery, please stand. Remain standing. If you have a family member or a friend in recovery, or anybody who's been affected by this drug addiction, please stand. So look around. And unfortunately, the numbers are growing every single day. Please be seated. It is my prayer tonight that my story can prevent someone from going down the path that I did and bring hope to those that have taken a similar path that I did. I was born February 12, 1988 in Braselton, Georgia. I was raised by 2 amazing parents that loved me and my brother dearly. They wanted nothing but the best for both of us. And they always tried to do that no matter what. You could say I had a pretty typical childhood. I loved playing with my dolls and riding my four-wheeler on the farm I grew up on. In elementary school, I played t-ball, I cheered, I played basketball. And also at a young age, I discovered that my dad was my very best friend. He was actually my hero in my eyes, and I was confident that he could save me from anything. As I moved into middle school and high school, my life continued to be pretty much like a typical teen. I played softball for my high school, and I had a career goal of becoming a geriatric nurse. I was always fun-loving and full of life, and because of this fun-loving personality, I was very much a thrill seeker, and I began using alcohol and marijuana as a form of recreation at the age of 15 years old. I continued my recreational activities as I began college. At 18 years old, I attended Gainesville State College, and only 3 semesters later, I was put on academic probation due to my grades and not showing up for class. This is when I decided I'll go for a different career. When I was 20 years old, I started at Lanier Technical College to get my certification as a medical assistant. While going to college, working a full-time job, I met my child's father. I soon discovered I had the perfect hookup on marijuana because he grew his own. I thought it was so amazing, and our relationship would be too. I graduated college in 2010, and right after we bought our first home together in 2010. In 2011, I found out I was pregnant with my daughter. Prior to finding out that I was pregnant, I was drinking, smoking, and I had begun taking Xanax and Adderall as well. I did not find out I was pregnant with Taylor until 12 to 14 weeks after conceiving her. At the age of 24, I gave birth to a beautiful, healthy little girl. When Taylor was 6 months old, I decided I was bored again and I wanted a change in my life. Chris, Taylor's father, moved out, and Taylor and I continued to live in our house, and Chris and I shared our time with Taylor weekly. Between the ages of 24 and 26, I spent my time partying on the weekends that I did not have Taylor, and I began doing a lot of cocaine and Xanax at this time. I soon began to experience the stresses of everyday life, like raising my child, having a job, a mortgage, and I didn't like those stresses at all. To cope with life stresses, I increased my alcohol use and my drug use, and I found my one true love, opiates. At this point in my life, I thought I had everything under control, but boy, I was wrong, and even my daddy couldn't fix it. Sometime later, I reconnected with a friend from high school who was also a thrill seeker and had that same love for me as opioids. We were perfect together, so we got married. It was not long until swallowing a pill did not create the effect that we desired, so we began shooting up. My love for opiates began with Percocets, oxycodone, and later on, heroin. Around this time, my life began to spin completely out of control, and my drug habit was costing me approximately $120 a day. I spent my days plotting how to steal, lie, and manipulate to get my next fix. I stole from my parents, my brother, my aunts, uncles, people I didn't know, and my own child. I took money, checks, anything I could sell or pawn. I pawned my daddy's prize guns, my mother's engagement ring, not once, but twice. I pawned my brother's antique shotguns. I traded my daughter's .22 rifle my dad had bought her for Christmas to a pillman for drugs. I left my child with my parents for long periods of time, even with her crying and begging to stay. During these times, I was living in and out of my car, living in drug houses where there was no running water, staying high, sharing dirty needles with people I didn't even know. I lost my job of 5 years. I lost my home, my car, and ultimately, I lost my child and my family. I was in deep legal trouble, and I was facing going to prison. I went to court, and my public defender worked out a deal for me to participate in drug court. My recovery truly began when I woke up in jail on my 28th birthday. I had been arrested the day before for a probation violation because I had left Women's Treatment Center where I was mandated for 30 days. My arrest resulted in a 2-month jail stay. I had been using methadone, which I had bought off the street as a form of harm reduction to control my use of heroin. While in jail, I detoxed from methadone, and it was so horrible that I contemplated suicide. Due to my probation violation, I was terminated from drug court and mandated to a place called the Wise Place, Women in Search of Empowerment, an intense residential treatment program 4 hours away from my home where I spent 18 months. Upon completing my treatment at Wise, I was mandated to then complete the DRC, which is Daily Reporting Center, 6 months program, and an additional 6-month program through the Screen Assessed Support Services, which is also known as SAS. In November of 2018, I have completed 2 years of treatment for my drug addiction. While being at the Wise Place, I received individual counseling, group counseling, and attended NA, AA, Celebrate Recovery, church, and held a full-time job. Being at Wise taught me a new way of life. It showed me that I don't have to stay in my own prison. I learned how to depend on my support system, which includes my sponsor, my probation officer, and my fellow peers. Through working a 12-step program, I have learned how to recognize thoughts and behaviors that can sabotage my sobriety, and I know how to take the necessary steps to stay clean and sober today. Every day is a struggle, but I find as time moves on, the struggle gets easier and easier. I used to be ashamed of the person I had become, but today I'm grateful that my higher power has given me a new confidence in myself, and I no longer have to be ashamed. What I have experienced has made me a person that I am today. I have a great relationship with my family. I have joint custody of my daughter, and I am newly engaged to a man who supports me in my recovery and my life goals. My lived experience has opened a door for me, as I am a recovery coach at Advantage Behavioral Health Systems. My goal is to become a certified peer specialist, and I'm happy to announce that I have been accepted to the CARES Academy at the end of this month. CARES is a Certified Addiction Recovery Empowerment Specialist. So I will go for a week training to become certified. It was my choice to experiment with drugs and alcohol that led me into my addiction that took over my life, and I had become someone I swore I would never be. In the throes of my addiction, I didn't think I had a choice to stop because my brain and my body told me I had to have the drugs. I'm thankful for the judicial system that put constraints on me that I was forced to stop using. While in treatment, I made a choice to stay and utilize the supports and provide me, and today I make the choice every day to stay clean and sober. And because of that, I can help others in recovery. I want to thank Janice Mangum and her team to be as a part of my recovery, and also the opportunity to share my story. You see, in those pictures over there, I was in a very, very dark place in my life. And I didn't have a choice but to use the drugs. But today, I can shine my light and help others. I want to remind each of you that every choice has a consequence, whether it's positive or negative. Please give this a serious thought, especially you young people. Because, like he said, Mike, it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care what color you are, where you come from, where you've been. It doesn't. And none of that is important. But what it will do is it will kill, steal, and destroy. It will take everything away from you, and it will leave you with nothing. But I don't have to live that way today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Of course, I get disappointed every year that we're not absolutely full out here. But it takes a lot of courage to come up here and tell your story to help others because you've made bad choices. I tell young people all the time, I was just here last week with Jefferson High School, and Mr. Brandon will tell you, and Coach Nass will tell you, I tell people, you have free will in your life to make choices. Everybody's got free will. We all do. But we don't have free will of those consequences, and Jessica is a prime example of that. I'm so proud of you and where you are and that you shared your story. It touches my heart. I'm sort of short. I'm going to get out behind there. I'm not going to touch on vaping much because Mr. Mike touched on the Juul. The only thing I'm going to add to Juul, we're having a big problem with that in all the schools, middle schools and high schools. The ingredient in those Juuls that cause that fruity flavor is called diacetyl, and it causes popcorn lung. So young people, if you're Juuling, when you get popcorn lung, it's irreversible damage. Your lungs will not heal. And you might be starting to Juul and do that at 12, 13, 14. When you get on up into your 20s, you're going to have trouble breathing. You're not going to be able to get your breath. And it's because of that fruity flavor in there. And the amount of nicotine in that Juul is equal to like a pack and a half of cigarettes. So you're getting the addictive nicotine in the vaping Juuls. You may not get the tar and the carcinogens that cigarettes have, because kids think, well, it's better than cigarettes. It's fruity flavor that tastes good. Well, you're getting that nicotine, which is the addictive factor. So I want to touch on that part. And then I want to go to, we were supposed to have a speaker, and she, bless her heart, she fell and broke her leg. So, yeah, I don't have to name her, but y'all, I'm going to talk about her son. Because her son, we got a big opioid crisis. And I want to touch on his death briefly, and then we're going to close this out. But we got a serious problem. I want to go on to the other slides here. There you go. A lot of you heard this story before if you've been to the Choices program last year, and Miss Kim was with us last year. But this is Brady Chapman right here. And in 2017, Brady Chapman was, I think, 27 years old. He was the first heroin, carfentanil-laced heroin overdose death in Jackson County. In Jackson County, Georgia, where we have grown up our whole life. And Brady started smoking marijuana when he was younger. Everybody thinks it's okay. It's a gateway drug. It's a stepping stone drug. But right 2 weeks prior to his death, his mom found out he was doing heroin. His girlfriend had told his mother. He lived in Talmo with grandparents, and his mother lived in Stevens County. And so when she found out he was doing heroin, you know, the marijuana wasn't enough for him. So he goes to the heroin and an opiate. And so she came to Talmo, and they got into a knockdown drag out with her trying to get him to stop, I don't have a problem. I can quit anytime I want to. I don't have a problem. And then 2 weeks later, he's dead from a heroin overdose death, laced with carfentanil, which is an elephant tranquilizer. He was 6'5", 260 pounds, fixing to go back to college, fixing to get married, everything going for him. And I can tell you, his autopsy report, and I usually bring it, reads that his cause of death is carfentanil heroin toxicity. You don't think it's going to happen to you. I can assure you, he did not think when he took that heroin it was going to kill him. But it did. And this is what we're facing with our young people. And, Miss Chapman, Miss Kim, she's a McCall now, and I hate that she got hurt, but she wanted to try to tell the story. But it is his birthday. I'm not sure she'd have been able to anyway. But she is very gracious to let me tell his story, and she encourages me to, so that she can touch somebody else and stop that from happening to them. She lost her child just like Mr. Mike lost his son. And until you're a parent, my mom always said, you're not supposed to have to bury your children. And so Kim is not with us. I wanted to talk briefly about Brady because it is here in Jackson County, Georgia. And it's just affecting so many of our kids, and the opioid use. An athlete can get all those injuries you talked about your children getting. You can get hurt, and then you're given pain pills, and that's opiates. And then if you don't take them exactly like you're supposed to, or you take too many, then you're going to get addicted to that. And then the opioids you get addicted to, the pain pills, it gets to where, well, that's a little expensive, so what do? You go to heroin. You go to heroin because it's cheaper. But you don't know what you're getting in the black market. I'm sure he didn't know his heroin was laced with carfentanil. So I tell that story because we got to always remember the Brady Chapmans, because I sat with that mother that lost her child. Me and Mr. Mike have done a lot of talking, and he came and spoke at our sheriff's conference in January at Cobb County's house. I wanted to get on board. Our young people are so important to me, and we have purchased these lanyards that, so we can provide them to every driving age student in Jackson County, so they can remember about the distracted driving. Wear your seat belts. Don't be distracted. Don't drink. But remember Brady Chapman and pray for his mama and his family. And it's sad that had to happen. So I wanted to touch on that just a little bit. I'm not going to go into the jewels anymore because I've been going around to the schools talking. And thank you, Dr. Talbert. I'm coming to Commerce next week to talk to your students. And thank you for letting me come. But right now, we're going to close this thing out, but we got to call on Miss Sandy Bailey. She always closes us out every year. Miss Sandy. Where you at, Miss Sandy? Miss Sandy. Oh, my goodness. Come on. Oh, okay, so Sandy's not here.
I'm Big Mama. Nice to meet everybody. Nice to meet you.
Oh, Big Mama. Big Mama. Y'all welcome, Big Mama.
Janice, thank you so much.
You are welcome.
I know you love my baby.
Oh, I do love her. Yes.
So today, my baby, she's in California teaching a class. But she sent me in her place, and this is her daughter, Miss JJ. Say, hey, JJ. Say, hey, JJ. I tell you, these children nowadays, they disrespectful. You heard, say it again. Say, girl, I'm gonna knock you in your head with my lips. Don't embarrass me. Don't embarrass me. Don't I look pretty? Yes. Woo! we're gonna talk and we're gonna tell the truth. We're gonna tell the truth. We're gonna have conversations between what it used to be like and what it is today. So JJ, how was your day today, boo-boo?
It's good, you know. School.
School, what's wrong with school?
Everybody's just so annoying these days, you know. The drama and the stuff.
You sure you ain't the drama queen? I'm not the drama queen. Cause you know, y'all nowadays, it's all about you with the click, click, click. We had Polaroids.
What is that?
You don't know what a Polaroid is?
No.
Girl, let me tell you what a Polaroid is. You had to wait 10 seconds, click, and wait 15 for it to come out. And then you had to shake it like a tail feather. Grandmama didn't get that. I can't drop it like it's hot, but I can lean like it's mean. Okay.
Are we gonna do this right now?
Tell the truth,
Right now.
So tell me about what's going on. Tell me about your friends, babe. What's wrong with your friends?
You know, they're cool. Just sometimes they get into stuff, you know.
Like what? Tell a bit more.
You know, drinking, drugs, you know, that jewel.
They doing the side chick. What's her name?
The side chick.
Juul, Juul. That's the side chick, goose. Yeah. Cause she beside the goose, the gray goose, the black liquor, the white liquor, and the red liquor. They doing that down here.
Yeah.
Girl, when we was young, we used to smoke that whack. James Brown said, Mary Jane. That's what we had. What y'all got now?
Oh, you mean that loud? That. Ooh.
Y'all loud, real loud. Yeah. Y'all loud, we taking folks to the hospital. Y'all folks be lacing stuff. See, we had homegrown, you can count on you getting a good buzz and then go home. Y'all babies going to the morgue now. Yeah, it's illegal. Well, unless you're in California and Colorado. You can go whatever. But y'all stuff different, baby. Y'all take it to the extreme. Y'all don't know when to stop with one drink. You want to put something in the drink and then look at people act the fool. That ain't healthy, JJ. Okay, so what about your friends? I'm kind of concerned about your friends, JJ.
My friends?
Yeah. You know, the little girl up the street that you be like, that's my friend. But I don't know who her parents is.
Why would you have to know who our parents are?
We used to know who was up the streets in case something happened. We could go to the house. Y'all friends, what y'all call it? Cyberspace?
Cyberspace.
You don't even know that name.
I can Snapchat somebody right now.
Snap who? Who you gonna smack? Who you talking to?
No, Snapchat.
Oh, you said snap. I thought you said snap, and I was getting ready to hit you. So what's Snapchat? What you do on that? Cause y'all, I be seeing them look, cause I got a phone too. It ain't smart, it's dumb, but I can do it like that. But y'all be having some little pictures on y'all stuff.
Oh, no, not me. No, not me.
You don't be shaking your booty?
Oh, no.
What that little girl name that you had to have a contest and she showed you how to? Who that? What that girl name? Light skin.
Oh, yeah.
What's her name?
Yeah.
What that girl name? Well, anyway, you had to have a contest, and girls think that that's cute. They don't value clothes no more.
That's the move now, you know?
What's the move?
The move, you know, the wave.
The wave?
Yeah. No, not that. No.
But it hurt right now. So why they doing that? Don't they see when your Papa, I love me some Papa. Papa used to coat me. He would come to the house.
What's that?
Coat? You don't know what coat means?
No.
Coat mean instead of him roll up and beep for you to come outside, he would roll up, get out the car and knock. Can I see Lena Bell?
You think I'm trying to get caught doing something I'm not supposed to do?
Well, they supposed to respect you when they meet the parents. That means they are interested in you.
Meet the parents.
Yeah, y'all don't do that?
Why can't they just meet them at like a football game or something?
God, no, because if anything happened to you, that trafficking, what they call that, sex trafficking, in there, I heard it on Channel 5. Channel 5 News, Channel 5, 46 and 2. But I need to know who you with. I can't be trusting folks on the phone and, meet me outside, catch me outside. Catch you doing what?
Catch me outside, that doesn't mean to go, that means to fight, You gotta post up, you gotta square up, sometimes you just gotta, somebody,
Is that how
you gotta catch me outside.
Is that how you handle problems?
Yes.
You just fight?
Yes.
Boo-boo, that ain't what we did. We talked.
Oh.
We had conversations.
That's not gonna handle anything where I'm from.
Really?
No.
What happened to let's verbalize it? We hug and make up and say, I'm sorry.
People are too difficult these days. Sometimes you gotta smack some sense into them.
What? Girl, say that one more time. I swear I'm gonna beat the fire you. I didn't raise you like that. I don't care what them streets raised you, but I ain't raised you like that. Come here.
I think it came from grandma.
Good, I'm gonna keep control. You can't do that. And then you get to fighting, and then how you feel when you get to fighting? Do you feel depressed? So why these babies killing themselves then?
Sometimes stress gets to you.
Stress?
Yes.
You work 40 hours?
No.
You get up and go to work somewhere?
No.
Why you stressed?
Bullying and things like that happen, and then sometimes people feel like just the deep nothingness would be what they need.
What's the deep nothingness?
Like the numbness, just nothing there. Just being gone would be the best solution.
Do y'all go outside and walk outside and see the sun?
Outside, there's a window in my room.
Do you walk outside and see what God done created?
Not really.
Do you even know who your neighbors are?
No, nothing. We see them outside once or twice, but
That's the problem. We don't forgot there's something greater. The reason why we numb because we ain't put nothing in us. We trying to numb it with medication and alcohol and sleeping with Tom, Jerry, Tyrone, Julianne, and Roseanne. That's the problem. These babies don't understand it's something greater. It's like, what is, you know what church is because I raised you in the church.
yes, I know what church is.
Then what is it?
Singing the choir after with Grandma.
That's all? Then many years, that's all you know was singing in the choir?
That's what I do every Sunday, isn't it? You see me up there.
Do you feel anything? You don't feel nothing on the inside, working on the outside brought about a change in me? Woo! Thank you, Lord. That's the hymns we used to sing.
A hymn.
At the cross, where I first saw the light.
No, that's not what we do.
Y'all don't sing that? What y'all sing?
Won't he do it? He said he would.
Who is he? God. Oh, but girl, I ain't hear Jesus' name nowhere up in there. That music y'all be singing. That Jesus to the cross ain't nowhere to be. You got to bring Jesus back into the family. So, what can I do to be the big mama for you? What can I do?
I guess just teach me what and what not to do and how to be a better person.
You gonna listen?
Yes, I'll listen.
You gonna listen?
Don't I always listen?
That see, you ain't listening right there. Your mouth got jazz right there. So how about you? We gonna sing. Just sing with me. Like your mama used to. She ain't here. She done got grown now. She don't hang out with your mama no more. Can you hang out with me, JoJo?
Yes.
Amazing grace.
How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
I was lost,
but now
Gracious Father, we thank you for the opportunity that you said at any given place we can call on the name of Jesus. And every knee shall bow, and every tongue is going to confess that you are our Lord and our Savior. God, I thank you for my grandbaby. I thank you that she's here right now with me. She's not dead, she's not in jail, but she's here. God, protect her and keep her. And not only her, God, but all her friends and her family and her enemies, God. Be with this generation. Cover this generation. Live through this generation. So they can understand that there is one Lord who sits high, but he looks down low, God. It doesn't matter what we've done, what we're doing. You're such a forgiving God and such a loving God. And I want to say thank you. Because had it not been for you on our side, God, where would we be? So today, God, we thank you for the group of people that have gathered to learn more about what not to do. Now show us what we need to do. We thank you for the sheriff of this county. No demon in hell is going to destroy what she's built, God. Protect her and keep her mind, keep her family, God. But most of all, stay in her heart. I thank you, God, and I love you. And this is our servant's prayer. And if you're a believer, say amen. 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 Give God some praise up in this.
Thank you, Big Mama. That was pretty good. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Be careful. Be careful. Don't go going down the steps. I want to thank y'all as we close. I want to say to you young people especially, always remember what I said at the beginning. We have free will to do what we want to in life. We can make those choices, but not free will for those consequences. It takes a split second to change your life forever. This is our 6th annual Choices. We do this so that we can try to make a difference in the lives of young people. I want to thank the speakers. I want to thank you, Mr. Brandon, Coach Navis. Thank you, Mr. Mike. Thank you, Jessica. Big Mama, a.k.a. Sandy Bailey. You never know what she's going to do or say. But it's in our hearts to always try to help somebody. Encourage people to, we'll have a video of this program and we'll share it since we sure didn't fill this place up. And that kind of hurts my heart sometimes, Mr. Mike, that we don't fill it up. But we do the best we can, and we talked about it. If we can save one, it's worth the time we put in it. So I want to thank you. I said at the beginning there was some special people here, and there are, but the special people are you people that brought your kids out here, the parents that brought your kids, the educators, the community leaders, the judges back here, the mayor, the police chiefs, and I saw the Georgia State Patrol back there. Thank you. I didn't see you at the beginning. Thank you so much for coming. I want to thank the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, all my people that are here to support me and what we try to do. And Sheriff is only as good as the people around him, and I got the greatest around me. So thank you all for coming, and God bless each and every one of you.